Hello, everyone. My name is Dorothy Lee, and I have the privilege of being the Executive Director of LitWorld. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon for our first ever Lunch with LitWorld. Today, we will spotlight our wonderful community-based partner, Springboard To Opportunities. For anyone tuning in who may be new to LitWorld, our mission is to strengthen kids and communities through the power of stories. We partner with community-based organizations all around the globe, including here in the United States, to run programs and campaigns that support kids and families. We have had the honor of partnering with Springboard to Opportunities since 2014, running lit clubs for moms, girls, and boys, as well as programs for World Read Aloud Day and other community initiatives. Springboard connects families living in affordable housing with resources and programs that help them advance themselves in school, work, and life. They do this by working directly with families, as well as by establishing strategic partnerships with other organizations that help residents achieve their goals. Their commitment is to make every part of their work radically resident-driven, and their model stays uniquely focused on listening to residents' needs, hopes, and ambitions, and supporting them to solve their most pressing problems and make a detailed roadmap to realize their dreams. Sarah Strip is the program manager for Springboard, and she is calling in today from the Jackson, Mississippi area, where the organization has its home base. They also work in communities based in Alabama and Maryland. I will now turn you over to Amber Peterson, LitWorld's Director of Program Innovation, who will interview Sarah. And here's a reminder to please chat over any questions you have for Sarah or Amber by clicking on the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And of course, thank you so much, Sarah, for being a part of this. It's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you too.
You, of course, have been a wonderful host to LitWorld on the several opportunities we've had to visit Springboard to Opportunities in Mississippi. And we're so glad that you've agreed to share your perspective and your expertise with our network through this forum here today. We'll jump right into the questions in just a few seconds, but I do want to remind everyone that we would love to take any questions you have for me or for Sarah, and you can use the chat feature throughout the conversation. So to get us started, maybe you can give us a little context. As everyone knows, 2020 has been an insane year for everyone. In the US specifically, in the United States specifically, in addition to dealing with COVID-19, we've also been confronting a lot of the racial tension that's been rocking the country recently. And of course, it's also a really contentious election year. 2020 has been crazy, to say the least.
Yep.
How do you see that the communities that you serve have been affected by all that's been happening this year?
Yeah, so like Dorothy said, we work with families who live in affordable, federally subsidized housing, and 99% of the population that we're working with is people of color. So you can kind of imagine that has had a huge effect, both COVID and the racial tensions and just everything else that has been going on. The communities that we work in have been hit extremely hard by COVID, particularly just in kind of all of the other consequential things that have happened around it. So most of the parents or guardians of the kids in our communities were essential workers. And so they were trying to figure out, they've been trying to figure out a whole lot of different plans. So they were really reliant upon the school system to be their childcare option most of the time. Just because of the unaffordability of childcare in this country and trying to make that work. So when things switched to virtual schooling, and pretty much all of our communities have continued to be in virtual schooling in this fall, parents have had to make like very impossible choices around what they were going to do. Like, are they going to keep this job, or are they going to quit their job and try to stay home with their kid? What does that look like? And there really hasn't been any good solution or option in terms of that. On top of that, like the population that we're working with, we've seen kind of again and again through data is just like one of the highest risk populations for COVID. And there's so many reasons that that has happened. Our families for years have just lacked access to necessities like high quality healthcare or being able to access insurance, really to be able to make that more of an option. Some of our communities, particularly in Mississippi, are in pretty rural regions where there's just not a lot of, I mean, even if they had insurance, there's just, it's an hour drive to get to the closest hospital or something like that. So trying to kind of navigate the healthcare system and figure out those things in this have been huge. So it's been a really difficult time for a lot of our families, but we've also just been amazed by the resilience that so many of them have. Our families have been navigating systems that have been stacked against them for just like years and years and years, and have learned how to rely on community and family members and being able to come together to work through really impossible situations and really traumatic situations. So we are always in awe of just kind of the resourcefulness of our families and the ways that they've been able to bounce back and keep so much positivity and joy. I think in some ways, our families were the best set up for something like this to happen, just because they have experienced so much trauma and like continue to experience so much trauma that they have developed skill sets to be able to work through that and have learned to adapt. So we're really grateful that we get to be with them and learn from them and see what they're doing in this time, but also just recognizing the deep hurt and layers of like systemic issues and systemic racism that have really, really ravaged these communities in the last few months. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that. And that idea of resiliency and that idea of just being able to be creative and innovative in this space is something that's definitely echoed across a lot of the partnerships and a lot of the communities that LitWorld works with as a whole. So thank you for giving us that perspective. So Springboard, I know, has been an amazing organization, and it's worked with the communities that you serve for a long time in Maryland and Mississippi and in Alabama. What is Springboard's approach to supporting the communities you work with? And have you done anything differently in light of this extraordinary year?
Yeah. So like Dorothy said in the intro, it's one of our deepest beliefs as an organization to be radically resident driven is what we say. So that means every single thing that we do comes from the community and comes from listening to the community. So whenever we're going to implement like a program or a service or something like that, we want that to be something that folks have asked for and told us that they need, because we believe that families know better than anybody else what it is that they need in order to thrive and meet their goals. So that has continued to kind of be our MO in the last few months. And how do we hold on to that? It's part of this too, is being able to understand really like the whole story of families so that we can provide really well-rounded, holistic services in order to support families. So in this time, we have had to shift away from the ways that we would usually do that listening, right? So most of the time that was knocking on doors, that was having focus groups or community conversations. It was bringing folks together and trying to really talk. And obviously we can't do that, sadly, just like this. So, it's been a lot of doing phone calls and doing surveys and just trying to do as much as we can to get out and talk to folks and see what that looks like. So, but we've been really intentional about listening and asking families, like, what is going on? What is it that you need? What is it that we can do to support? And because of that, a lot of our work has kind of shifted away from what was maybe more like developmental work and things about trying to kind of push people to new goals or to new things that they were looking up to, and really focus a lot on basic needs. So right now folks need food. And so we've been working really hard to like figure out how we can partner with organizations to get people food boxes, to make sure that when school systems are still serving meals like lunches and snacks and things like that? How can we get those on site? Because we know a lot of our families don't have transportation to get to the school or something like that. How can we get folks cleaning supplies, or how can we kind of get folks the basic things that they need right now? Especially people who are caring for elderly family members or folks who are in really high risk situations and don't want to be venturing out a whole lot. What can we do to get those supplies to them? So that has been a huge piece of that. We've also asked a lot of questions of families about how we can support them best in virtual schooling and what that looks like. And so we've been trying to kind of help families connect to each other if they have kids that are in the same grade, trying to offer some virtual tutoring options and seeing what those different pieces look like, and how we can help people access technology or get used to working on computers or whatever that is. So yeah, I think we have really in some ways dug more into this ethos of who we are as an organization in these last few months than we had in a long time. Just of saying like everything we're doing has to be about listening right now and has to be coming from the community. Because even I think in a lot of responses that we see, people are making a lot of assumptions about like what it is that families need. And it varies a lot, right? Like our communities in Maryland might be receiving certain assistance from the state or have certain other things taken care of that like communities in Mississippi don't have, or folks are just in different situations. And so how can we do our best to support folks where they are, and what does that look like?
Absolutely, thank you. I do think that for a lot of us, this is an opportunity to really kind of reevaluate the role that listening plays in what we do and how we do it, especially in our sector. I think it's so important that you guys are kind of recommitting to that listening, and something that, definitely we're seeing across all of our networks as well. Just what is it that people actually need, and how do we support that? So, as Dorothy mentioned in her introduction, Springboard and LitWorld have been partners for a really long time. And how has LitWorld programming supported the work that you're doing now, and just in general, how does kind of the LitWorld pedagogy come into play with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think especially right now, a lot of the work that you all have been doing and sending out like virtual programming ideas, and some of the ways that you've utilized social media in order to kind of like create learning tools that folks can have in their homes have been super, super helpful. It's always been a really big focus for us to involve the whole family in the learning process. And so how do we equip parents at home to have the tools that they need to help their children and to help create kind of that learning environment at home. And so to be able to utilize a lot of the stuff that you all have been sending out with some of those like work at home packets and things like that has been incredible. And like we see parents being able to work a little bit more with their kids and think about how they can make their homes like this learning environment, especially right now when their homes have become their schools and trying to figure out what that looks like. I think, it's also been really great just to be able to get books out to families, to be able to really like put that storytelling in the home. And, I think right now more than ever, like kids need something where they can have books that are expanding their imagination and stories that are expanding their imagination, especially when it feels like the walls are closing in on you. Like, how can you kind of create that space? And so we've thought that has been like incredibly helpful for us, because we really do think that a 2-generation approach is like the way to go. And we're talking about working with families, because it's never just about the kids, or it's never just about the parents. Like, how do we kind of get in at both levels? And I think LitWorld has given us the tools to be able to do that, especially during this time, but even before that, right? To be able to do things like the community action projects, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit, but and get to see the parents be involved with that and get really excited about the things that their kids are doing. And so I think LitWorld has been incredibly supportive of helping make that happen for us.
Oh, wonderful. I know we've been kind of following along with you guys as well and learning a lot from you and your response to just being able to kind of work in this new normal, this new state of normal. So seeing some of the video lessons that you and your mentors have been giving, and your girls and other members of the community really kind of embracing technology and providing services in that way has been really, really inspirational for us as well. So thank you. So you mentioned already the community action plans. Springboard has been an integral part of the Her Story campaign, which is focused on empowering girls specifically. And the community action plans are initiatives that are really kind of implemented, and everything about them is kind of run by the Lit Club girls themselves. Springboard to Opportunities has always had really amazing community action plans. How are young people responding to current events, and how is Springboard supporting them now?
Yeah, so again, I think we have seen just like some incredible resilience with our young folks, and some of the things that they're planning and doing with their communities. So there's definitely a lot of disappointment, I think, in that community, or in those kids right now, just like not being able to be with their friends, not being able to be at school, especially for some of our older kids who, you know, we're looking forward to some of these final pieces of high school, and it's just like those have seemed like they're all taken away from them. But I think we have been able to watch them kind of shift and be able to like move into a new space and be really excited about that. So we have been doing a lot of our clubs virtually, which has allowed the kids to connect with other kids from across the country. So like kids in Mississippi have a chance to meet some of the kids in Maryland or in Alabama or other places. And that has been really cool, just to kind of see them expand in that way and get to expand their networks and their friends. And I think for them, it's really important to get to kind of see how other kids are living in other places. We've been able to connect them to some of the international webinars and other things like that too. So they've been able to at least virtually travel to some of these other places. And it's been really fun to see the way that they've been inspired by that. And we've also seen them just be really supportive of us in the work that we're doing, and some of these supply deliveries and things that we're trying to get out. So whenever there's like food deliveries or lunches or things like that, it's always the kids who are like coming up, and they'll meet us at certain places and be like, oh, how can I help? Like, can I go bring this to this person or that person, or different things like that. And we've just seen the way that this kind of attitude of service, and particularly support and love for their community has really come through in these past few months. And we've been so just like impressed and inspired by that. And to see the way that some of these different lessons that we're talking about and the 7 strengths and all of those things have just kind of like worked their way into these kids. And so we are so excited to get to see what they're doing. And we have some plans in 2021 of hopefully being able to do some more community action plans in each of the different communities, so that the kids in the clubs can think really creatively about what that looks like and how they can continue to support the rest of their community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know that you guys have a history of community action plans. What are some of the specific things that the girls have done through their community action plans?
Yeah, the first one that we did was around back to school and school supplies, and kind of came from a couple of girls who had seen girls in their school who just like didn't have the supplies that they needed for school, and recognized that that was really hindering them from being able to reach their full potential and what they wanted to be able to do in school. So they organized these really great back to school drives in each of the communities that we had in Mississippi, to be able to get supplies out to all the kids who were in those communities, and also brought along different community partners as well, so that there were folks from the PTA in some places, and folks from different legal agencies who helped on education and things like that, so that they could connect with families and be able to have conversations about the school systems. And then they even all came together and wrote this really incredible letter to the governor about the inequities that they saw in their school systems and what they wanted to see changed. And were able to kind of stand in that and be advocates for their school and for what they believed they deserved, which was really, really cool. Yeah, I know.
That's so awesome.
Right. And then we also had some girls who were really interested in thinking about food systems and food insecurity in their community. And so they worked to revive their community garden that had once been a staple in their community and had kind of over the years faded away for different reasons. And so they set up a whole plan for that and did a big planting thing. And then over the summer worked with the elementary school kids to take care of the garden and had this huge harvest party at the end, which was just awesome. They like ran kind of their own free farmers market and like were telling all the adults about the different kind of vegetables that they grew and just kind of like gave away tons and tons of produce throughout the year. So that was really, really fun. And we're really excited to see kind of what the next things are that our kids come up with, because they're incredibly creative and have so many good ideas, and we have so much fun getting to put them into place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we talk a lot about kind of listening to communities and listening to everyone, but listening to kids and listening to what it is that they want and how the ideas, the wonderful ideas that they have to be agents of change in their own community. So, so wonderful that the community action plans have worked out in that way. I see that we're getting in some questions via the chat. I know that Springboard does so much work for the communities that they work with, or that you guys work with. Are there any other actions or initiatives or projects that you guys are doing right now to support communities and the families that you work with at this time?
Yeah, so I think one of our biggest initiatives, and one thing that we have been talking a lot about, is a project we're doing called the Magnolia Mothers Trust, which is around guaranteed income. And so we are providing 110 of the moms who we work with $1,000 a month, each month, no strings attached, for 12 months straight. And that has been a really important and incredible program for us on a lot of different levels. That again came from just kind of this space of listening to families and hearing again and again and again when we'd ask, like, what is it that you need? What is it that's preventing you from reaching your goals? And they'd say, well, we don't have cash. Like we don't, like we might get a voucher for food, but like that doesn't buy my kid's school supplies. That doesn't let my kid participate in band and be able to like have an instrument. That doesn't, allow me to take care of my mom in the way that I want to, or something like that. And so we started this program with a pilot in 2018 with a smaller group of 20 families, and then we're able to expand it to this larger group of 110 families this year. And in particular, it was so fortuitous, like how this all happened, but that their very first stipend came like literally that weekend that social distancing started and things started shutting down. So to be able to see the way that like that program has really helped families throughout these past few months has been really incredible. And there's just been a lot more conversations as, a lot of these other social safety net pieces have fallen apart over these last few months. People in the country have been talking about cash finally and the importance of it, and seeing the ways that families need support there. And I mean, the results that we've seen from that have just been really incredible on a 2-generation scale. So we've been able to see families and mothers be able to go back to school or work towards their jobs or buy homes or different things like that. But we've also seen kids who, hadn't been attending school regularly, like start going again and start getting really excited about doing that just because their family had the resources to be able to like make that happen and get them there. And we've seen kids be able to start participating in more extracurricular activities, and we've seen health outcomes improve, and grades improve and things like that. And so we're really excited about that. And right now we just have a lot of anecdotal data, but we're excited to kind of see like what comes out of this larger project with that too. Because we think that's a really important piece of holistically being able to support families as well.
Absolutely. It's embracing that agency of people to kind of direct their own futures.
Right.
I love that program. I'm so inspired by it. Thank you for sharing about it. Some of the questions that are coming in via chat from Monica: how have the needs differed over the communities that you work with, if at all?
Yeah, so it's definitely differed from place to place. And I think a lot of that has come from like the different governmental responses in each state and what that has looked like. So in Maryland, there has been a lot more support from the government, just in terms of kind of getting different resources out. And they shut down for a lot longer. Things were closed for a lot longer. So there were more families without work for longer, but they had kind of upped things like pandemic EBT and different resources. So that there we saw a lot more need, both in terms of kind of being able to provide with some of those basic supplies and needs, but also with just being able to kind of connect people a little bit more, and being able to build some of those social networks so that like kids had places to go after school or different things like that. I think in Mississippi, we saw a lot more people who needed food, who needed kind of the basic things coming out right away. So that was a huge piece of that. And there just was a little bit less of a coordinated response in Mississippi, I think, around things. And so being able to get more information to families, I think just kind of around what was happening was also really important and a big part of our response here. And the decision around schools happened later here too than it did in some of the other communities. So the back orders on computers and tablets and things like that were pretty severe. And so kids are just now kind of getting the technology that they need for virtual schooling. So that was also something that we kind of tried to step up our game with in Mississippi as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that nuance there.
Mm-hmm.
Also from for the chat feature from Maria, are there any resources that Springboard to Opportunity shares widely that educators or parents can access?
Yeah, well, one thing that we do is we have tried to shift to some social media education pieces. I think you kind of mentioned this. So we have an Instagram account that is at STO Programming. And on there, we did a lot of lives and different things during the summer. And we're trying to kind of pick some of that up again with doing some live readings on Wednesday from one of our community specialists, just to do some like story times and books things, and have been trying to share out a lot more resources there as well. And we do have some stuff on our website as well that just kind of like summarizes some of the things that we're doing and a lot of the research and sharings that we've done too. So that is always a great place to check some of that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are nearing the end of our time together. Before we go, I did want to just ask if there was any, as someone who is so closely connected to what's happening right now, and such an amazing role of having to really be creative and innovative in this space, is there any insight that you can offer or calls to action that you have for people looking for ways to support their communities and especially young people?
Yeah. So, I think again, like for us, it always goes back to listening, right? And like listening. I think that's the advice I give to everybody right now. Like how can we not make assumptions about what people need, but just like recognize that community needs are different. How do we listen to people well and try to get them those things that they need? And I think particularly with students and young people, just like giving students some space to talk and process their feelings, like they're going through so much. And I think sometimes we sell our young people short and think that they don't realize like what's happening in the world, and or that they're very internally focused or something like that. But like we were talking about with the girls and the community action plans, like they have incredible ideas and they have this desire to be able to help and support their community. And they see what their parents or guardians or other folks are going through and want to support and be there. And so I think giving them some space to be able to process through their feelings and think about what they're talking about, and maybe from our own experience, being able to help them kind of work towards a solution, right? Whether that's kind of formulating some sort of community action plan, or if it's writing a letter to the governor, or like whatever it is that they need to kind of work through. But I think it's so important right now to give youth that space to be able to really process and be listened to and feel like they're being heard, because so often they're not.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Both of those pieces of advice are amazing. Again, thank you so much for your time, for participating. Thank you everyone for joining. If you would like to learn anything else about Springboard to Opportunities, go to www.springboard2.org. If you have any questions for me or for Sarah, please let us know. You can go to the LitWorld website as well at www.litworld.org. We are excited to continue the series and are so happy that you were the person who helped us to kick it off. So thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.